Hey artists, today we're going to make these really awesome ancient pagoda paintings. Follow along with me and I'll show you all the steps so you can make your own. Okay, for my first step, I'm going to take the ruler. Now this ruler is 1 inch, so I can just actually trace the ruler all the way around. So I'm going to trace, I want to hold it still, so I don't mess up my line. And I'm going to draw a 1 inch border all the way around my paper. All right. Now, go ahead and trace on down here. Perfect. Once you have that 1 inch border, the next thing that we need to do is draw a central line down the middle to help us make sure that everything we do on this side, we also do on this side. So I'm going to take my pencil, find the middle. So this is about 10 inches across, so half of 10 is 5. I'm gonna go for the little 5 mark right there. That shows me where the middle is. And then I'm going to carefully take this and draw a line right down the center. I will erase this line later, but right now it shows me how I'm going to make everything the same on both sides. So I'm going to start down here at the base of my pagoda and then carefully move on up, adding the roofs and different things like that. So first thing I'm going to do, and you can use your ruler or you can kind of freehand it, but I want to leave some space down here for some water and things. So I'm going to start up here. I'm going to draw a straight line going across, and then I'm going to have my building kind of come up, and I'm trying to keep it the same on both sides. And then I'm going to go straight over here. So that's going to be the base of my building. I'm going to draw a door right here in the center. This line is super helpful because it shows me both sides of the door are the same, because I'm trying to keep that symmetry as I build my pagoda. So the next thing I'm going to do is add a window on the side. And then I want to add the same window on the opposite side. Perfect. Now I want that signature curved roof. So I'm going to curve my roof up and have it come in. And then kind of go up. Excellent. So there is that roof. And now I can add another layer to my pagoda. And again, I'm trying my best to make sure it's the same on both sides. And you may use a ruler. I'm choosing to not use a ruler. I'm just kind of freehanding it. So I'm going to add another curved roof. Let's see. Curve it out. Perfect. And perhaps here I might have some different little windows. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and add another layer to my building. I want to have one of those really pointy roofs here that then goes out and curves way up. And then I might just add some little windows up here too. All right, I have the basic outline of my ancient pagoda. I have my 1 inch border around, and now it's time for me to grab an eraser and get rid of that central line that I was using to help me make things more symmetrical. Okay, so I'm just erasing that center line that I kind of used as a guide. I also need to erase over here where my little inch kind of got away from me. Okay. So now if there's any other details I want to add, like maybe I saw some really cool pagodas that had these columns that came down. So I thought it would be cool to have maybe my roof could kind of come down like this. And then I could have one of those columns that comes down. Now, you can get creative and kind of do whatever little details you would like to add to your pagoda. But I was just thinking it looks really neat to me to have some of those columns that kind of come down and support the building. Okay. Something else that I thought was neat, how some of these have like this little pointy fixture that comes out on the edge of the roof. I just thought that looked really neat, so I'm going to add that to my corners as well. And then if you want, I saw some people had a very beautiful pond or like a stream out front or some mountains in the background. So if you wanted to have, you know, that beautiful water, you could have a cool bridge going over that water. And this is, again, just kind of however you want to be creative with your pagoda. So you could add some of those details like some little trees or bushes, or maybe you will see, you know, this mountain back here in the background, kind of behind the pagoda. And the next step is we are going to outline with a Sharpie marker. Okay, so now we are ready to go ahead and go over all of our lines with permanent marker. I did add a little bit of detail across my little bridge. I added the little pieces of wood and the connectors, so there was like a little railing. I also added a little tree over here and a little bush. So any details you want to add either to the background behind your pagoda or details to your pagoda, you probably want to do that with pencil first. And then this next step is we are going to outline it with black permanent marker. Okay, now that I'm done outlining with my black Sharpie marker, here comes the best part, and that is painting. I've got two different watercolor brushes. I have a round and I have a flat to do different kind of areas. And instead of using our regular watercolors, today we have this awesome palette with just so many different colors that we're going to be using to paint our pagodas. So it's going to just depend on where you want to paint first. A lot of times I like to paint my background first and then focus on the pagoda last, but that's going to be totally your choice. I'm going to kind of wet down this area here of my sky and then choose a color I would like to use for my sky. And I'm just going to add that in, and I'm just going to be adding color to this picture from top to bottom. The reason I choose to go top to bottom is if I start at the bottom, then I'm sticking my arm down in wet paint, and that is not my favorite thing to do. So with these watercolors, I do like to put a little water on the paper first. It helps make that watercolor wash where the paint just kind of moves with the water there, making a nice, beautiful sky. If I want the effect of clouds, once I put this on here, a little bit more water in my sky, then I can just kind of leave some open spaces where the clouds will be, and then just paint around. That looks really nice. Okay, once you're satisfied with that, you can just keep moving down your page and adding more color and detail in. So I've got these mountains back here. I think that's what I'm going to work on next. I'll leave this part white for my snowy mountain. So I add a little bit of the water first. And this color is kind of like a greenish gray. I think that looks really nice for my mountain. You can put the paint on a little thicker and it's going to be darker. And if you use your brush and kind of move away or add a little water to your brush, then the paint becomes a lighter color. So this is a great time to kind of experiment with how these watercolors move on your page. So I'm just adding color to that background. Get my other little mountain side behind my pagoda. Since these are really nice variety of colors, it's really important that we wash our brush really clean before we dip into a different color. Now, since this one is going to be a mountain a little further away, I might make it a little bit darker to kind of have that contrast. Maybe this one's in more of a shadow back here. All right. Then I can choose a color for the grass. It's down here on the ground. And I'm just going along and adding color to my background. That way I'll be ready to concentrate on the details of my amazing pagoda. Now I'm imagining that there's some grass kind of coming up along here, and then there's also my little bridge here. Oop. Don't worry if you go outside your line, we're going to end up painting over that anyway. Well, this is looking fantastic. I might switch to my other brush. I've got a lot of space here for my water. So I could take my flat brush, It's going to allow me to put a lot more water down. And I'm imagining that this is more like a murkier water, so it's going to be darker. I'm going to take some of this darker blue. That's looking awesome. I can add a little texture with some brush strokes. All right. Now, once we're satisfied with the background, then it's time to start working on the foreground. So I'm going to, again, kind of move back up to the top, and I can start working on my building. I'm thinking I'm going to make my roof like a darker green. A lot of times with watercolor, we might put one color layer down, and then we might add a second layer for other details. So I'm going to start with this green shade. And then if I want to add some more details after that dries a little bit, I can go back and add some different texture and color on top of that. So I might lay down one layer of color and then go back and add a different color. I might mix some colors. So that's the awesome thing about watercolor, is we can add so many different layers and it ends up looking really cool. Okay, so I'm going to kind of wash my brush clean, and now if I want to go back, I might get into this kind of brownish color here, and maybe I'll add like some little texture to my roof. And if I don't like how rough that line is, I can take some plain water and kind of smooth it out. Kind of like erases that line. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep adding to my picture and adding those colors and details to color in my amazing pagoda. All right, so now we've got kind of that base color on everything. The great thing about watercolor paint is that we can layer it. So if you want to go back and add some texture to things, you can definitely do that, and it really brings more character to your painting, especially if you're somebody who's finished early and you're like, how do I make this just better? How do I make my painting better and have better details? So like down here where this is my grass, I can go back in. We've got all these different shades of green. I could get this kind of darker green, and I could go add some grass texture just kind of around my building here. My pagoda might have some grass growing here and here. Just short little strokes. Adds some really nice texture and really makes it look more detailed. You could even have like a little tuft here, and then to kind of fade it down, you just kind of wiggle your brush. You can wash your brush clean and just use a wet brush to kind of wiggle back and forth and almost erase that line. Just adding a little more texture to your grass there. We could also continue adding texture to the roof. I know I had started adding some different lines here. So this is just something else that you can do. Maybe I want to just take a little bit of the brown and kind of wiggle it in here and just give it a little bit of a shadow. So if you're doing something like a shadow, you'll kind of wiggle that color on and then wash your brush clean. And then just use your wet brush that has no paint on it to kind of fade it into a little shadow like that. Other things that we could add some detail to the windows. Like I could add some things like this. So again, just using the brush and the paint to add layers can really brighten our pictures up and give some really cool details. Anything I do to one side, I've been doing to the other side. I've seen like how some of the pagodas had different kind of wood details that look like little different kind of squares. I could add some of those little details right here if I wanted. So again, we can look back at some of the photos of the pagodas and get some ideas from there. Just going back and adding some cool details can really spice it up. Looking pretty cool. All right, other things we could do, we could add some different kind of plants back here. Have some different, maybe some bamboo growing on the side of the pagoda. We could add some texture to our trees. So this is really where we can go in and add those extra details that really make this picture unique and different by adding in little details with layering, just going back and putting stuff on top of the base paint that we put on first. Okay, I went in and added just all the detail I thought my picture would need with different like little plants and little designs on the building to kind of look like the wood we saw in the real pagodas. Added to my trees and plants and everything, some little flowers. The last step for us is to go ahead and paint this edge red. And so we're just gonna go over here and get into our red paint. And we're just gonna gently and carefully paint this whole edge. And you know what? I might suggest switching to a wider brush. And that'll make it a lot easier to cover that area. So we're just gonna get that paint with some water and we're just going to go ahead and fill in this whole edge with red. All right, I went ahead and finished that border and now we have a completely finished pagoda picture. And I cannot wait to see the beautiful pagoda paintings you create.